The goal, gentlemen, was simple. With years of obscure card hunting under my belt, I have rewarded myself and labeled myself quite the obscure card hunter. Frankly, the best of the best. And with absolutely no correlation, those are also my best performing videos, so here we are. Hello. So let's expand on this a little bit and make the ultimate obscure deck. Now, if you don't know, on this channel, we consider an obscure card to be any card that's ran in under 15 or 15k or under decks on EDH Rec. And you might say, oh, 15,000 decks, that's a lot of decks. A card like Rampant Growth, take your guesses now how many decks that's ran in. 100,000? 500,000? 700,000, over a million decks. So 15k is kind of small potatoes in the metaphorical potato soup we got stewing here. Seriously though, what if we made the most obscure deck we could make? What would that look like? What strategy would lend itself to obscure cards the best? How would it even play? Would it play? We're gonna answer those questions. Absolute cinema. So if you want to take a look at a deck where every single card is gonna make your opponents go, what's that? What does that do? That's a magic card? We got the perfect list for you today, all right? So comment down below what your favorite obscure commander card is, and let's get into this. Whoa. The first thing we got to do with this obtuse lava goose looking ass deck we've got here is set 2 ground rules to help us pick out a commander. 2 things I thought would be very good for an obscure commander. 1, if it let us reuse cards. Because if we're going to have such a limited card pool, our cards are probably going to be a little bit weaker compared to some modern day cards, but being able to reuse those cards will essentially make them equal to, if not stronger than some of the modern cards. For example, which by today's standard is still a good card, but it is a little casual, a little slow. If your deck is able to use Harmonize twice, that has now became like a 4 mana draw 4, or at least you get to use it twice, which ups the power of the individual card. So if our commander can let us reuse cards, that's very, very good. The second thing, if our commander has a very straightforward strategy, that is going to help me immensely because I won't be sitting on Scryfall searching through every single card that's in 15k or under decks, so that's going to be nice. So first rule, lets us reuse cards. And second rule, has a pretty straightforward game plan. Those are going to be very nice for a commander running nothing but obscure cards. So, the hunt began. And you know what? I did cheat a little bit here because you can click on as commander or as card. So the commander we ran, I looked at how many decks it was ran in as a card to determine whether or not we could pick it as a commander. So as a card, if the commander was ran in 15k or less, that was a good choice for a commander for us. So a few jumped out at me right away, but then quickly became worse and worse ideas. Gave Guru of Spores, for instance, is ran in under 15k decks, and I thought that's a really powerful engine. That's a straightforward game plan. It doesn't let us reuse cards, but it lets us reuse the tokens and 1/1 counters we're putting out, so that almost does act as a way to like reuse a resource, and it's just such a powerful engine. I was like, this might be pretty good. It might be worth it to not have the reuse card aspect because of how strong Gabe's engine is. Not true, because once I looked at it, I was like, oh, every single card that helps us add an additional 1/1 counter, every single card that helps us double the amount of 1/1 counters, double the amount of tokens, at all engage with doubling our tokens or giving us more tokens, all of it is ran in over 15k decks. There was like little to nothing we could run in the Gabe version of this list that wouldn't just make it a super slow, super boring token deck with little to no access to anything that would like spice it up at all. So Gabe was quickly off the chopping block here. Another one I thought would be kind of interesting was Pramicon Sky Rampart, but this one quickly went out of my brain because I was like, that's going to be a Pillow Fort deck. And I don't think there is a Pillow Fort card that exists that's ran in under 15k decks. And upon researching, I literally could not find one. I couldn't find Windborn Muse, Ghostly Prison, Propaganda, Nils. There's a lot, and they're pretty much all ran in over 15k decks. You might find 1 or 2. I don't even think you'll find that. Like Koskun Falls, that's like one of the only Pillow Fort cards I could find that was under 15k decks. And guess what? That doesn't go in Pramicon. So that deck was off the chopping block as well. But then I found it. The best commander for this deck I could have possibly found. Anello the Painter. Now not only can we call the deck Underground Artist, which I absolutely love. Anello also fits our rules very well. He's very obviously a Spellslinger deck, and he very obviously helps us reuse cards because he can copy instants and sorceries. So let's get into what Anello actually does. Anello is a Grixis commander that gives all of our instants and sorceries casualty 2, meaning when we cast an instant or sorcery, we can sack a creature with power 2 or greater to copy that instant and sorcery, and then choose new targets for the copy. This is incredible because it makes all of these underplayed instants and sorceries a potential second copy of that instant or sorcery, which in my book makes it a whole lot stronger, especially when you don't have to pay mana for the casualty, you just have to sack a 2/2 body. Oh, and guess what? You know what Wizards loves printing and they have not slowed down one bit on printing them? Cards that make 2 power plus tokens. They're all over the place in this game, so that's probably going to be the first place we're going to start. And keep in mind, when the ways we have to make 2 power plus tokens in our deck are instants and sorceries, we can copy those instants and sorceries with a Nello if we already have a 2/2 in play. So keep that in mind while we talk about some of these sorceries and instants that can create 2 power plus tokens. Up first, we've got Fire Nation Attacks, ran in 14k decks. This gives us 2 2/2 soldier tokens with firebending. We can also flash it back from the grave for 8 and a red, which it is an instant, so the firebending will help us do that. And again, if you can copy this thing, we're getting 4 2/2 soldier tokens with firebending. Sure. A counterspell like Flip the Switch is really good, ran in 6.9k decks. Counters target spell unless they pay 4, and gives us a 2/2 zombie with Decayed that we can later use to sacrifice for a casualty trigger. Giss's Bidding, this one is great in this deck, being ran in 5.6k decks. It's a 2 and 2 black sorcery that creates 2 2/2 zombies. Again, if we can copy any of these spells, they become incredibly effective. We could counter a spell with Flip the Switch, create a zombie token, to then on our turn play a Giss's Bidding, sacking the zombie we got from Flip the Switch to copy Giss's Bidding, making 4 zombie tokens for 4 mana. That's pretty good, especially with the restrictions we have on this deck. But that's not the end of these effects. We've got Mona the Unhallowed being ran in 2k decks, a 4-drop sorcery that makes us 2 zomboids and flashes back for 7. 2k decks? Yeah, this one's nice in here. Rotten Reunion, 5.5k decks. Something as simple as Rotten Reunion is incredible in this deck as it acts as a 1-mana copy target instant or sorcery. This 1-mana instant can exile up to 1 card from a graveyard, create a 2/2 zombie with Decayed, flashback for 1 and a black. This card is a banger in here, man. Play this for 1, get a 2/2, then drop an instant or sorcery you want to copy and sack the 2/2. This is literally just a 1 black copy target instant or sorcery spell in this deck. Pretty gross. And the same goes for Vile Rebirth. This is just a 1 black, exile a card, make a 2/2 at instant speed. Same thing. Copy a spell for 1 black in this deck? Sure. Talrand's Invocation is a 4-drop that makes us 2 2/2 blue drakes. Again, copy this and get 4 2/2 drakes for 4 mana. That's not bad. What about Final Days being ran in 5.1k decks? This 2 and 2 black sorcery creates 2 2/2 tapped horrors with flashback for 6 that creates X 2/2 black horrors equal to the number of creatures in your graveyard. Now, past the instants and sorceries we have that make 2 power plus tokens, we also have plenty of permanents that will consistently be producing 2 power plus tokens, so we can always have access to something to be copying spells. A card like Cruel Administrator is ran in 6k decks. This 3, a black and a red 5/4 enters with a 1/1 counter on it if you attacked this turn, and whenever you do attack, we get a 2/2 soldier with firebending. This makes a great engine to create 2 power tokens, or something like Drake Hatcher being ran in 6.7k decks. This 1 and a blue 1/3 has vigilance, prowess, and whenever it deals damage to an opponent, put that many incubation counters on it. Remove 3 incubation counters from it to make a 2/2 Drake. The prowess on this card, paired with this being a Spellslinger deck, makes this a fantastic 2-power engine. This thing's going to be making a ton of Drakes. Also, ran in 6.7k decks. I have no idea how that's possible, but sure. Fire Nation Trebuchet is ran in 6.1k decks. This 2 and a black 0/4 has Defender, Reach, making this a great Rattlesnake card, but it also has a triggered ability. Whenever we attack, we create a 2/1 construct that's tapped and attacking that we sack at the beginning of the end step. Well, we can just go ahead and sack it to copy a spell instead. That seems not bad. How about Kavron Harrier? Ran in 2.6k decks. This 1 red 2/1, when it attacks, we can pay 2. Creates us a 2/2 robot tapped and attacking. We sack it at the end of combat, making this a little harder to use because we can only copy instant speed stuff with this because we have to sack the token at the end of combat. But Kavron itself is a 1-drop 2/1, so this could just be used as a 1-drop copy the next spell you cast, so thanks to Casualty, so that's still pretty good. And finally, what about Azaz the Clattering King? This is actually busted in this deck. 7.7k decks. This 2 and a black 3/2 can't block. When it dies, you create a 2/1, and when that 2/1 dies, you return Azaz from your graveyard back to your hand, making this a great, just infinitely repeatable sack thing that you can always have access to a casualty with. Even outside this challenge, I think this is a great card in this deck, so if you run a Nello, I think this is just a good option anyway. Okay, so we'll get to some of the bigger spells we're going to copy later on in the video, but for right now, we're playing a lot of 2/2s, we're playing a bunch of spells that make 2/2s, we're potentially copying those spells that make 2/2s, we're going to consistently have 2/2s that we're sacking on our board, so having some death triggers is going to be good. Finding death triggers that are ran in under 15k decks was such a bitch, but that's where your boy LJLK came in clutch. He hopped into the stream with me, helped me find a ton of good stuff for this deck, specifically in the death trigger section, so huge shout out to him for this one. This drastically increased the power level of this deck. It plays way better with these in here, so let's get into some of the death triggers we put into this Grixis Spellslinger list. Up first, we've got Elemental Express Expressionist being ran in 940 decks. This is where LJL came in clutch, dude. This 4 hybrid Izzet 4/4 has Magecraft. Whenever we cast or copy an instant or sorcery spell, choose target creature we control. The next time that creature would die this turn, exile it instead, and whenever that creature is exiled this turn, create a 4/4 red and blue elemental. This is awesome as we can cast a spell, target one of our 2/2s in play, and the next time we sack that 2/2 for the casualty trigger, we will get a 4/4 elemental replacement. What a steal. What about Sanguinary Priest? Still only being ran in 11.9k decks. Turning our creatures dying into damage to opponents while having lifelink makes this a kinda weird one-sided blood artist. So I like this dude. He's a beefier blood artist. Doesn't trigger when opponent stuff dies, but you're gonna get that with 11.9k decks. Scavenger Drake, 1.2k decks. This 3 and a black 1/1 flying gets a 1/1 counter whenever a creature dies, making this a potential game ender in this deck, honestly, with the amount of stuff that's dying and it having flying. Sure. Southwind Avatar from Ninja Turtles being ran in 3.7k decks. This 3 and a black 3/4 has Death Touch. Whenever another creature we control dies, we gain life equal to its power, and whenever we gain life, each opponent loses 1. It's a nice little pinger. I like this guy. Spiteful Prankster still being an 11.1k deck somehow. This 2 and a red 3/2 has First Strike on our turn and pings an opponent whenever anything dies. Yeah, that's any creature. That's kinda nuts to be in 11k decks, but sure. What about Venom Crawler? In 10.9k decks, this bad boy costs 3 and a black for a 2/2 lifelinker that gets +1/+1 whenever a creature dies. Again, making this an absolute unit in the mid to late game, gaining us a ton of life, dishing out a ton of damage. This thing's gonna be getting pretty big. Or finally, what about Vogar Necropolis Titan? In 5.6k decks, this absolute boss hoss is not ran in nearly enough decks. This 3 and 2 black 4/4 menace gets a 1/1 counter whenever a creature dies during our turn. We also draw a card equal to its power when it dies. So we could let this thing scale up over the course of the game and then just use it as our casualty trigger one of the times to just draw a bunch of cards. Actually, good card. I would consider running this in like maybe even Taval or something like that. I know. So outside of these 2/2 spells and getting these death triggers and doing all the casualty stuff, how are we actually going to get the most value out of our casualty? You know what I mean? Like our commander's ability, sure, it's fun to make a ton of tokens, but like, where's the real meat and potatoes here? Well, honestly, copying a lot of our card draw is going to be incredibly powerful for us, but more importantly, copying our removal. One of our creatures dying is going to equate to multiples of theirs dying thanks to our casualty. So instant and sorcery removal spells in this deck are incredibly good at keeping their board open, so we can swing at them with some of our tokens. That's not really how we plan to win the game. It's more of a culmination of things. The Sanguinary Priests, the Spiteful Pranksters, along with copying our removal to keep boards open, along with swinging in with our tokens since boards are open, along with scalers like Venom Crawler or Scavenger Drake. There's a bunch of different aspects to this deck that can help you bring home games, but we do run some actual win cons. We'll talk about those later. Right now, I want to talk about how overpowered doubling some of our removal in this deck is, because oh boy is it overpowered. Malicious Affliction ran in 13.3k decks. Not only destroys a non-black creature, but copies itself if a creature died this turn. So guess what? Thanks to Casualty from Anello, this 2 black instant destroys 3 non-black creatures. This is actually disgusting. What about Croesus Charm? 13.3k decks. Return a permanent to its owner's hand. Destroy a non-black creature or destroy an artifact. Yeah, copying that's going to be probably pretty good. Or something like Dimir Charm being in 10.9k decks lets us counter a sorcery, destroy a small creature, or set the top of someone's deck. Again, the charms, so good to copy. One of my favorites is Isildur's Fateful Strike being ran in 11.3k decks. You can only cast this spell if you control a legendary, but for 2 and 2 black, we can destroy a creature. Its controller exiles their hand down to 4 cards. Yeah, sure, I'll destroy 2 different opponents' 2 best creatures and have them both exiled down to 4 cards. Thanks, Casualty. And like I said, we could even copy our card draw spells like Blood Divination, 4.1k decks, and even the Score, 11.3k decks, to keep a full hand so we constantly have options on ways to bring home the game. But I'm not going to keep you guys on removal all day. Let's talk about some of the win conditions in this deck. Stuff like Pink Horror being ran in 10.8k decks, Rona being ran in 5.5k decks, or Sentinel Tower being ran in 11.3k decks offer some amazing chip damage. The Pink Horror deals 2 damage whenever we cast an instant or sorcery, Rona drains opponents whenever we cast an instant or sorcery for 1, and Sentinel Tower deals 1 damage for each spell we've cast this turn. So all 3 of these in a Spellslinger-esque deck like this is going to be amazing. Past this though, we run Phoenix Fleet Airship in 8.1k dex. For 2 and 2 black, we get a 4/4 flying vehicle with crew 1. At the beginning of your end step, if you sacked a permanent this turn, and thanks to casualty, we will have, create a token that's a copy of Phoenix Fleet Airship. As long as you control 8 or more airships, they all become creatures that don't need to be crewed. Yeah, in the doubling doesn't stop, by the way, so you'll have 8 of these, then 16 of these, then 32 of these bad boys. Yeah, no, this one's busted. What about Choice of Damnation? 6.5k dex. A pretty hard-hitting 6 and a black. Have an opponent choose a number. You then have that player's life total become that number, or you have that player sack that amount of permanents. A real damned if you do, damned if you don't. Speaking of damned, how about Bonfire of the Damned? 8.8k dex. This 2x and a red sorcery deals X damage to target player and each creature they control. The thing is, you can miracle this thing for an X and a red. So you could theoretically miracle this off top for a ton and then casualty copy it to deal tons of damage to 2 players and their full boards. But my absolute favorite way to win in this deck has to be Burn at the Stake in 8.3k dex. For 2 and 3 red, we can tap any amount of creatures as an additional cost to cast it, then it deals 3 times the amount of creatures we tapped as damage to a player. So if we've got 10 of those 2/2 tokens this deck makes a ton of, we could tap all of those and deal 30 damage to 2 different players. I mean, that's just cool. Even if you have 4 creatures in play, this thing can do 12 damage to 2 players? Sure. That doesn't seem incredibly good at all. But yeah, there's the ultimate obscure deck. The fact that these cards were also obscure also lent this deck to not being as expensive as you would expect. Actually, probably exactly as expensive as you'd expect. I don't even know why I said that. It's like 45 bucks. That's probably what you'd expect for this type of deck. Actually runs. It actually plays. It's actually pretty decent. And the coolest part is every single card in the deck is ran in under 15k decks. Every one of them. So your entire deck, think about this. Your entire deck isn't ran combined in nearly as many decks as one Rampant Growth is ran. That's pretty cool to me. And if you think that's pretty cool, make sure to like, subscribe, comment your favorite obscure card down below, and check out the nixlotus.com website where you can look at community decks, check out our Scryfall search optimization tool, or check out the merch page to pick up the Teneb the Harvester sweatshirt. And if you want to show some additional support, you can go ahead and become a Patreon or a YouTube member for as low as $1 a month. You can gain access to the deck submission form, submit your decks on Friday nights for me to review on live stream, yada, yada, yada. Little incentive there. Huge shout out to all the names you can see on screen, and consider clicking on the video on screen because YouTube thinks you might like it. Hope you enjoyed the video. I had a blast making this one. I'll see you guys next time. Peace.